Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk. Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. And I'm laughing. I'm smiling because Fishrock, I'm sorry, my friend. I am laughing at this replay, but we are going to answer your questions. In fact, I have two videos or two replays for you guys today to talk a little bit about this same subject, about general overall philosophy, if things go bad, critical terrain, going purple places, doing purple things, how you play this game well. Fishrocks is in his bat chat. What is it, 25T AP, the tier 9 version of it. And he is platoon with Brickface in his char footer, in his footer. And they're going to the little village. Little village, all right. His note says, had the game last night, maybe my fourth or fifth battle. It prompted a rageless rage quit. Ruinberg Village is just one of those places. I never do well there. I mean, I'm an average player. I would never claim to be great. All right, says, but this game, this was something even more. I took a position where I shouldn't have been in danger. I hadn't noticed that part. And when we got to it, I had just read it as I was kind of going back and forth on it, and I went, uh-oh. So let's talk about that. The little village here on Ruinberg, okay? So Himmel's Ruinberg. They're spawned into the north, and Fishrock and Brickface are moving over here, and this is not an unusual place for mediums to go. Over here on the east side of the map, but generally what you're going to see is they're going to get tucked up into these buildings right here to the south end of the building so that they can kind of keep the purples honest, and even more important, they have shots down the road. That's why you want to be where the ELC even is. So we're going to contest this. We're not going to hang out and watch this. The idea is to win the village, not defend or hang out back of the village. And I see a lot of this. You can tell you've got two Scorpions. That's not that surprising. Scorpions wouldn't necessarily get forward, but your TDs are usually going to sit back in here. Interestingly, the north side has a better TD position really than the south side does. The south's good TD positions are way back in the corner, harder to use. But the north has some nicer, higher terrain ones that can shoot right into people pushing through. To some extent, the south can do that as well. The Type 59 looks like he's AFK, and I don't know what this 7501, he might even be AFK or he's just hanging out at cap. So we want to take that village, and we have two awesome auto loaders at tier 9. I don't want to say that you need to YOLO in there and start blasting, but what we get instead is we get split up a little bit, and one of you kind of gets into a bush, and we are now relying on the enemy team to make the move. Talk about this a lot. It is not my personal gameplay style to let the bad guys make a move. I find that in general, if you're sitting back waiting for them to make a move, you're relying on them to be dumb and your team in other places to be very good. And I just don't find that to be a good, it's not a high percentage bet. As far as I'm concerned, me and my platoon, we have to win the battle. That's the goal going in. I don't care what tiering I am. I don't care if I'm bottom tier. I don't care what tanks I'm in. It doesn't mean that I rage forward and go the heavy brawling area, although it does quite often more than other people for me. But it does mean that I am active in the place that I'm in, and I understand what I'm attempting to do in this place. So you said something to the extent of, I know lights and mediums are supposed to go here. Well, that's true, but if you sit back in bushes, that's failing to do the job. The job is to win the village. In order to win this map, the job is to win the village. The critical terrain on this map, for me, is this area down here where the heavies are fighting, with a close second to the village. This map does require both to be held. If you lose the village, you're in big trouble down in the city because it's very easy to get shots down through the road or to flank and to gobble up the campers in the back because you can move along this high road and come in there and start lighting them. So you do have to have people in both places. And this is one of those maps where it is good to put your heavies down where the heavies, air quotes, go, and your lights and mediums where the lights and mediums go. But unlike a lot of maps that have these fields, it's not a great idea to camp them or hang out in them, and it's not usually enough just to neutralize. You really need to win this, and hanging out back in the back like this is just relying on the other team to make mistakes and for the rest of your guys down south to do really well. And if you ever look at the deployment on this map and you see you only had a few heavies go down into the heavy brawl area and you have a bunch of campers and mediums that are inactive in the village, you need the hair on the back of your neck needs to be rising pixel tank wise, because good things are not about to happen. Good things are not about to happen. I also, and you will find me quite often, and the reason I do this, I will take my mediums and go down to this nook in the middle road, because I can support taking shots up here, I can fold back into the city and support taking shots down here. I can move down this road once this is neutralized and come around the corner and start flanking the guys down here. And if I have to move up into the village, once things start getting hot up there, I can come around the corner and move down here and move into the village. It is a central position. It's an aggressive position. It gives me shots earlier usually, and it allows me to react to the battle. If I go up here where you are and I sit in bushes, I just let the world go by. I just let the world go by. Now, it may not be a bad idea to initially just kind of hang out here, but you got about 3 tanks up there. You got the C-52 LAS. I think the other Char Future is in there somewhere. But you've got 2 really good tanks. 2 really good tanks. And working as a team, you should be able to start working some shots. Now, this is the grim part, because when I see, just from a technical aspect, you in this bush, the whole side of your tank is sticking out of it. So I would have shifted a little bit or find a bigger piece of bush or something, because you're going to get very unlucky to some extent. But it's not surprising to the other extent, because the enemy team actually pushes. Weird, right? The enemy team actually pushes. So I was sitting here watching this. I was reading what you were saying. I'm like, what do you mean something, where is it? Maybe you can offer some words to the viewer base. And you're talking about, I was surprised I got spotted here. So we're still hanging out. Brickface is sitting there. You're sitting there. We haven't taken a shot. We're a minute and a half into it. The other team is sitting on the other side of the buildings. The heavies aren't really engaging, just a little bit down there. We're heading into 2 minutes into the game. We're still chilling out in the bush right here. And let me just pause before we get to the salient point, or to the end of this battle, because it comes pretty quickly, giving it away. What's your plan? Right? What's the plan? My assumption is the plan is to wait for them to push, start taking hit points off of them, maybe get a reload, and then clean them up if you've hurt them. Not a bad plan, but it's not really a plan of action. That's more a hope. That's more a defensive hope. I hope they do that. There's no aggressive taking the initiative plan that I can see right here. You guys may be talking about it. Maybe you're thinking, all right, where do we go next? What are we going to do? But the problem is that is overcome by the enemy team and having some initiative. One thing you have to watch out for in situations like this is if there's not a lot going on and you only have a couple tanks and the enemy team's only seen 1 or 2, maybe Brickface and even 90, and there's 4 or 5 of them over there, even if you've got some guys back here, they might be thinking, well, that's not a very active team. Not much going on here. Why don't we push them? And that's exactly what happened. Now, this 704 actually sees them. Comes through. We start to move, but we're spotted already because there's the light, and it was 3 seconds ago we got lit. The enemy Barras takes 2 hits right there. Oh, by the way, there appears to be a T-30 somewhere, because we just got hammered by a T-30 that's holed down through the hole. And that was very strange, I guess. Maybe right through there, the bush or something. So the T-30 is over there. And then the 704 who kicked this whole thing off. I had a recent video where I talked about that one decision that you make. That one decision that you make. Not a lot of people in an Object 704 would push in like that, but why not? It's a pretty good armored tank. He knows that there's 5 or 6 of them there, right? And he also may know it only seems like there's 2 or 3 guys hanging out behind here. And if they can crush this little defensive position and take the eyes away from the campers back here, they're in really good shape. They own the village, and now they can start picking apart guys camping down here, sneak around through here and light these guys up, or just abandon it altogether and fold down and back behind and come around and add their guns down here. And boom, we die. And I do apologize. I did laugh right there. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is awful. That is awful. So that was quite a long discussion, but I think it's important because you get into... maybe you can offer some words to the viewer base on how to deal with something like this mentally. Like I said, I just had to log off. There wasn't even rage. even now watching it doesn't inspire emotion or thought. It just seems shut it off. All right, I think the bottom line on that, man, is, and this is gonna be, it's not meant to be hurtful, but it's gonna be direct. You sat in a bush, you weren't in the bush, you got spotted by somebody who was aggressive and pushed. That's what happened. So for the mental part, one of the ways I deal with that is I do the pushing. And then if somebody spots me and kills me, maybe I learn something about that particular position. Maybe I learn something about reading the enemy tanks. Maybe I learned something about, all right, the timing was a little off. It was a little early. I didn't count noses right. I didn't really pay attention to the matchmaker setup. Maybe my tiering was not quite right. All of the things that go into thinking about what you're going to do in a match. I feel that if you're aggressive and moving around, you learn more about that. So why not fail trying to push and take them out? To me, that's an easier mental acceptance routine than I hung out in the bush. I really hoped for the best, but bad things happened. All right, example number 2. Second example. This time, this was a replay that was put on the forum actually by Kamikaze 2017, and it was kind of the standard question of how could I have turned this into a win. I was in it at the end. What mistakes did I make? How could I have won it? And it was aimed at, because he has a little bit of an accident at the end and ends up dying. We'll see that when he gets there. It kind of goes with poor Fishrock getting annihilated by the pushing 704 and the T30 as a similar situation. But as always with those questions, it's usually aimed, or it's usually asked about the end game. About, all right, I got to this point, what should I have done to win? And the question is very rarely, what should I have done at that point to win? The question is almost always, what should you have done before to make that situation not even a factor? Now, I would have fired there. It's interesting that he's just allowing that piece of concrete to be in the way. Just knock it down or take the shot, because I think he's definitely got him highlighted there. You just can't see him because of the concrete. And yet he definitely could have seen him. So he gets spotted there. Initial positioning. We're here on Berlin-Dorf. Spawns, heads to the south. I thought he was going out into the field, and he gets stuck right here. He gets lit, and he kind of just hangs out. Spins around a little bit, moves back into a bush, gets hit by a 07 RH, and now he's out of here. One of the things he noted in his write-up is that he got trapped. You're not really trapped here. You got seen, and it would have been bad to keep going when you were lit. Let's see what he's doing here. He gets some shots on the E25, so good on him. He had a couple shots, the E25 right there. But now what? So again, the same question I asked Fishrock, everybody else who's viewing this video, take a look at it and think about, I'm in this casemate TD, I'm on Berlin-Dorf, what do I do? I don't know why he was staring at his own stirv. Spends a lot of time staring down the barrel of the tank, fairly new player overall. And it's pretty typical, right? Guys go to positions and they sort of stare. Shows a bit of unawareness of what the maps are like. He doesn't have enough altitude here. That's a big, hard hill that he's just not going to see through. It's not even worth really looking. Just go find yourself a better position in this case. Now, he does have a little bit of awareness. It looks like maybe if the Progetto moves uphill a little bit, he might have some shots. Then he finds the AT. And he's got a shot right there. And so we'll just kind of hang out here, right? I think a lot of times when you look at the replays and pay attention to what you're doing, a lot of these things sort of become self-evident at the time, or at the time of looking at the replay. But during the actual battle, you feel like maybe you're doing the right thing at that time, right? That's what everybody wants to think. Now, the enemy team is jumping all over the cap, and we're just sitting over here because of this Progetto, I guess, got us worried. Unfortunately, we bounce right there. We take a hit from the Progetto, or sorry, the T25 AT. Hits us pretty hard. Pretty lucky, actually, he didn't just take another shot right down that same line. I don't know if he saw Kamikaze move forward or not. and then we're backing out. So because we failed to get down to the south where the Sturv is quickly, and we got stuck in the middle, we're not able to sort of blunt this push that's going on. Had he been over where the Sturv was, they probably have a heyday wiping these two out as they drive around the open, or even get shots over here on the EBR, and the guys are going after the defender in the middle. And then I watched this part of the match. This is pretty typical too. You get trapped, or you feel like you can't move, and now you're just hanging out. Now, I don't know, maybe he was making a sandwich here. I'm not really sure what's going on right here, but he sits for quite a long time. And we're not in the battle, so maybe he was AFK or answering the phone. Who knows? That looked like he was just simply not there. Then we move forward again. The team has got an advantage at this point, so it's time to try to get this gun into the game. So we're going to come back around here, looking for the Progetto. There's plenty of ground to use to move forward. You've got the berms and things. You could try to get up into that little sniper spot, maybe just up and over enough to shoot the Progetto. If we count noses, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 4 dead, that's 12. There's 3 artillery, that's 15. We basically know where everybody is. The Progetto is over here. He's the only guy over here. All we have to do is get rid of him. Looks like the Tiger sort of figured it out. He's going to go in there maybe and get rid of him. 3002's back there behind us. Zooming in. Pretty typical TD player, just waiting for the other team to drive out in front of the gun. You're going to increase your win rate by attempting to create the shots instead of allowing the enemy always to create the shots for you. Just a rush shot there, not a very good shot. Could have anticipated it was coming around the other side of the Tiger. We shoot, we don't get spotted, we back completely out, we're reloaded, and we finally move forward. Thought this was a decent move. We're trying to get into these bushes over here. Keep on trucking forward. We're on the cap. We have a decent advantage, 5-3. And looks like we're going to go up here. Tiger gets hit. And we spin around very slowly up into the bush. And we have found our TD position. There we go. Take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tanks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all of them. We lose the defender. We kill the T-28. We're still sitting on cap. We got 46 seconds. So we look at that and go, all right, if we're going to try to cap, how do I help the guys in the cap? Okay position for doing that. If they're out in the open over here, we might get some shots on them. Really, for my money, I move up into these bushes a little closer, potentially, or maybe even start working around the outside. If I can get up on their position over here, I'll have shots into their backfield. And as they start moving around over here on the west side, attempting to get into our 2 guys capping, you can stop all these dudes from flexing back around over to the west side. But this is more of a passive position here. And we'll just hope that the enemy team isn't smart enough to get over to the cap. That is not usually true. Now, there were a couple instances where we had shots on these guys. I actually just missed one earlier. The IS-3 moving around as well and just not paying attention. IS-3 moves down into the dirt pile or down into the ditch. T-32 is moving in. He's got a lot of hit points. That's going to be trouble probably for the 50 TP. We stay zoomed in right there, which I can't figure out. Maybe they thought the game was won with 7 seconds, but the 32 is actually able to get up on the cap and stop the cap. It's like just maybe in time. 1 second, he's able to push that dead tank just enough to get into the cap. He gets hit, but he's got all kinds of hit points. 3002 is taking on the Eagle 7. We've got a Panther M10 back in the artillery. So other choices here would have been to go back and help the artillery earlier. Maybe move around to the north side from the east over here, back across the bridge and try to take on the guys that might be moving over to here. And all of a sudden, we go from looking good to a 9-9 game. Tiger 1, Sturv, and the AT-25 AT sitting in the field, right? Just sitting there, doing nothing. Tiger 1's at least kind of gone where I was talking about earlier to try to go around that way. Leo takes out, the Panther takes out the Leo, gets both arty. That hurts because trying to splash guys who might be camping. Sturv dies from the IS-3A. He must have been moving around. I'm not really sure how he got seen. And then the IS-3A moved across there. As a matter of fact, he had a shot right there. You may have seen him lit. But we're just hanging out. And this is a lot. This is just a much worse version. Finally, we see him, and this is nice right here. He finds him, kills him. Excellent. This is just a worse version of Fish Rock going to a bush and hoping that the enemy team does something that I can hit, or does some kind of mistake that I can take advantage of, instead of trying to create shot opportunities. Now, Fish Rock didn't really get far enough in the game to start working it. The 704 pushed him. Hard to know that was going to happen, but that's why I got into the whole discussion about I'd rather be active, moving around trying to find shots, actively trying to create or do damage or facilitate damage, than sit in bushes, sit in the back, and hope that the enemy team makes a mistake. His team, Kamikaze's team, is doing their best. They're trying to make it happen, but they're dying slowly. And we've not moved at all from this position. We've been in 2 positions the entire game, just attempting to do, just hoping that somebody gets out there and lets us hit them. Eagle 7's moving around, and it's now we're down to 2. This is about the time when in his write up on the forum, he says, "All right, what could I have done? I could have won. I could have helped win." Well, that was a long time ago, my friend. You have 740 damage. You haven't done anything to try to make a shot happen in probably the last, 5-8 minutes, something like that, and now we finally move. This is another thing you see a lot with newer and worse players, is in these critical phases at the end, there is a point where everybody realizes, I got to do something. Usually, that I got to do something moment already happened. It's kind of like losing SA. You don't know you've lost SA until you realize it, and the point at which you lost SA is usually a long time ago. So we come forward here, and I'm not really sure what happened, what he was actually trying to do. Maybe just spin on that edge of that, why we would even go to that portion right there, but he ends up falling off. And, and again, Fish, I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you, man. I'm laughing with you. Kamikaze, not laughing at you, laughing with you. I've done this myself as well, but gives it the old college try. Finally tries to move forward and falls off of the smallest cliff in Himmels, Berlin. And we're just going to wait for the last 5 seconds before we explode. Boom. So an entirely winnable match. So he's right. It was winnable. Had a couple of these tanks, I think especially Kamikaze, been more active much earlier, say he takes off another 400 hit points of damage. That's 2 more shots. That brings the enemy team down to 500 hit points here. Maybe those extra 2 shots keep one of their tanks alive. He helps the Tiger a little bit more. As the Tiger pushes, the Tiger's still alive a little longer. That will snowball and create more effects further down the line. The more damage you do, the earlier you do it, the better off your team is. Maybe takes an extra gun out of the game. Maybe keeps another guy or 2 alive. When we get to this point of the game, we have a net advantage in hit points. But if you sit around and wait for the enemy team to make all of the decisions, you're counting on them to make bad decisions and for passive gameplay to be able to defeat active gameplay. And the fact is that it doesn't. Not the majority of the time. Not the majority of the time. So there you go. Some things to think about positioning. Critical terrain, I didn't really talk about it on this one. I consider it the north brawl up here to be critical. Once that's won, you can start filtering down south. This south field is usually what you just saw, a complete camp fest and people just sitting around. So usually, and that's what happened, the purples won up here. They're able to clean up the guys in the back here, filter down, start picking off guys trying to cap. Terrible idea in this big bunker. It just does not work. And eventually they're able to clean up the guys hanging out in the field, and it's all over. Or the guys hanging out in the field clean up themselves. All right, that is all I've got for today. Some back to basics stuff. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, and we will see you.